A lot of people don't realize that the game came first. So we created the cash flow game. The book came as a result of a Robert working on a brochure to promote the game. That's how that came about. But the cash flow game came about because Robert and I, in 1994, we were financially free. And everybody thought, well, you must have had millions of dollars, or you sold your business for a lot of money, or big stock portfolios. And it's like, no, we didn't have any of that. Just as you're saying, Brian, it was our assets. And an asset in the rich dad world is something that puts money in your pocket, whether you work or not. So what we had was we had $10,000 a month, every month coming in from our investments, primarily real estate. But our living expenses at the time were only $3,000. So at that point, we were financially free. And instead of traveling the world, everybody's like, how did you do it? How did you do it? We actually took step by step. And this was interesting, how to put what we did into a game that was fun and entertaining. And we kind of trick people into learning because they're having fun. So what we did is we actually took the steps that we took to become financially free and we put it in the game. So the financial statement, which is the scorecard in the game, actually is a type of financial statement that we look at every month. And you've got in the game, you've got the income statement, you've got the balance sheet, and you've got the statement of cash flow. So we wanted people to teach people. So instead of us traveling all over the world, the game travels all over the world to places that Robert and I would never, ever get to. And then people can teach one another. People can teach their kids. We have it in businesses. I had somebody who played the game with 3 accountant applicants for their business to see what the behavior was, because it really is a mindset change, and it's you watch people's behavior and it really comes to the surface. So it's my passion. I like to be the queen of cash flow. And I love that this game, we're now going to have a digital version that we're about to launch, which is very, very exciting. But the more people out there get access to this game, I think financial literacy is the number one thing that if people could understand financial literacy, I think it's at the root of so many of people's problems, that the lack of financial literacy. So the more financially literate, the less dependent we become on government, the less dependent we become on bosses, the more control we have over our lives. And I'm all about taking control of the financial life. We have hit our head against the wall trying to bring the games and books into the school system. All we get is we don't teach money in school. It's like it's an evil subject, which I do not understand, because it's something everybody uses every day in their life. It's the number one life skill. Yet people don't know. We work so hard for our money, but then nobody teaches us what to do with our money. So maybe it's on purpose. Maybe they don't want us to know about money. I don't know. When we created the cash flow game, Brian, one of the first things I did is I sent it. I had a contact at Harvard, and she was a professor there. So I sent it to her and I said, play this game, see what you think, and I'll call you in a couple of weeks. So I call her in a couple of weeks and I said, have you played the game? She goes, this is Harvard, Kim. We don't play games at Harvard. She said, Kim, we don't play games at Harvard, and we don't teach about money. It's below them. It was like below them. So I really don't know today. More and more schools are starting to bring, but not really the public school system. I see it in charter schools. I see it in homeschooling. I see it in individuals, teachers, parents who will bring financial education into the school. But I think it could just be on purpose that the powers that be do not want people financially literate, because then they would have more control over their life. And maybe there's forces that don't want that to happen, unfortunately. I think one of the worst things you can do is give people money. One of the most important things is what it does to your soul, to your spirit, to your self-esteem. What makes countries great is production. What makes people great is getting out there and producing, coming up against obstacles and having breakthroughs, and all of this. I think it's just keeping people very, very dependent on the government. And of course, if you give people money, there is a price to pay. And that price is your freedom. That price is control over your own life, control over your own body even. And now they're coming out with UBI, Universal Basic Income. They're experimenting with that in the US, where everybody gets a check. I mean, I think it's the worst thing you can do. I am a huge, huge proponent of capitalism, free markets, free trade. I think that's what keeps the world running, not just giving people money, printing more money, giving people checks, stimmy checks. Oh my goodness. So many people right now in the US are not working. I don't know how they afford it, but I know for a fact people who had been on welfare for a short period of time because they had a something that, you know, years ago they had a situation and they weren't working and they needed money. They said to me, it was the worst feeling ever going into that office and picking up a check without earning it. I mean, I think people in general, they want to be of contribution. They want to earn what they get. They need to be in exchange. And with stimmy checks and free money and all UBI, it's just one big out of exchange for me. And I'm more concerned about what it does to a person's soul and spirit and what that price that they're paying for that check. They probably have no idea, but I would never, ever, ever pay that price ever. It's very scary because I see the same signs, Brian. I see it here in the US, the way they're leading people to schools, the universities and colleges, and now it's going into high schools. They are not institutions of learning. They're institutions of indoctrination. They're indoctrinating these students to start believing that, yeah, socialism and communism is great because everybody's equal. The world isn't equal. It doesn't work that way. And just the other day, we did an event at Arizona State University, and it was Robert, Dennis Prager, and Charlie Kirk of Turning Point. And the subject was health, wealth, and happiness. Very non-controversial. It was just an educational event. It was the professors that stood up and said, we don't want Charlie Kirk and Dennis Prager. They're Marxists. They're KKK. They're racist. And they used all this language, and they got the students kind of revved up. And now what the good news is, we did the event. We put a press release out because this was getting so much attention. It was just a simple event, and they've turned it into a political event, which it was not. But as a result, this has now opened the door. Some of the people that were involved have been doing major interviews on major networks. It's become a kind of a test for free speech. And the whole narrative right now, people are using Arizona State and our event as a platform for free speech. And if that was the effect of that event, then I am thrilled, because we're getting knocked out of free speech right, left, and center. You know it on social media. We've experienced it on social media. It's once you have no free speech. Two of the women that were key people involved from ASU, one was an ASU professor. She was the one that was putting it on, as well as her coworker. They both got fired.
Wow.
And because of bringing Charlie Kirk and Dennis Prager and Robert onto their campus. So she has now been speaking out, and the networks are all picking her up, and a lot of media is picking her up nationwide right now. So it's a really positive thing. I think what we need to do, Brian, is people just have to start standing up. They have to start saying no, and a lot of times that comes from saying no with your wallet, and not well, for me, not patronizing the institutions that are very, very, I'll use the word woke, very, very kind of anti the values that we stand for in capitalism and free markets and free trade, against liberties and freedom. We just have to stand up and say, we're not going down that route. Isn't communism or Marxism one of the key components, the abolition of private property? And I see that happening. I mean, taxes are going up right now. People aren't being able to necessarily afford when the interest rates go up and their mortgage gets refinanced. They can't afford it. People are leaving their homes. So I see that happening, and it looks very subtle, but I'm not so sure. The banking crisis here is far from over. I think there's a plan in place for the banking crisis, which is not a healthy thing. Small banks are just getting squeezed out right and left. So we gotta keep the fight going.